All right, fifth graders, this is Mr. Combs here again for our third installment in Real Life Superheroes. And so today we're going to be reading and learning about Raoul Wallenberg. And so as we read, keep these questions in mind. What made Wallenberg so determined to make a difference for Hungarian Jews? How did Wallenberg's life prepare him to help people during World War II? And then what are some of the lasting effects of Wallenberg's work? Okay, we're going to start off with some vocabulary. For pages 18 through 21, a diplomat is a person who represents his or her country in a foreign nation. Persecution is the state of being continually treated in a cruel way. Deported means to be forced to leave a country. Some more vocabulary, pages 22 through 24. Authorities, a person in command or in control. Convince, to bring someone to believe in something. Campaign, a connected series of operations, a specific period of a war. And then sacrifice, something given up or lost. And so now we're going to begin our reading about Raoul Wallenberg. So, Raoul Wallenberg. Fact file. Full name, Raoul Gustav Wallenberg. Date of birth, August 4th, 1912. Nationality, Swedish. Died, not known exactly when or how. We'll learn more about that later. Interests, drawing, languages, and travel. Worked as a businessman and diplomat. Famous for saving hundreds of thousands of Jewish people in World War II. Okay, here's a quote. The greatest unsung hero of World War II. I want you to keep that quote in mind. If someone's an unsung hero, what might that mean? Here we see a timeline of his life. 1912, born in Stockholm, Sweden. 1931, goes to college in the United States. 1935, works in Palestine. 1944, becomes a diplomat in Hungary. 1945, arrested by Russians and disappears. 1947, thought to be the year that he died. 1947, monument to Raoul built in Budapest. And then 1948 through 49, nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. All right, without any further ado, we are going to begin on page 19, A Privileged Upbringing. Raoul Wallenberg was born in Stockholm 3 months after his father died. The Wallenbergs were a wealthy banking family, and it was expected that Raoul would also become a banker when he grew up. Here we see, today a sculpture of Raoul's briefcase marks his birthplace. Raoul studied hard at school where he showed an interest in drawing and a gift for languages. Later, he studied architecture in the United States, but on his return, he was sent to Palestine to train as a banker. Our next little text box right here. When he was in Palestine, Raoul met many Jews that had escaped from Germany where Hitler's ruling Nazi party was making life very difficult for them. Raoul was shocked by their stories of ill treatment and persecution. I want you to think how this experience that he had in Palestine, where he learned of the horrible things that were happening to Jewish people in Germany, might have shaped him and kind of shaped what he might go on to do later. Turning the page. A successful partnership. Raoul found that banking was not for him, and on his return to Sweden, he went into business with a Hungarian Jew called Koloman Lauer. They imported and exported food to and from different countries in Europe. World War II. When World War II broke out, Raoul's business trips took him into Nazi-occupied countries, such as France, as well as to Germany itself. Here, he was able to see for himself what life was like for Jews under the Nazis. Here we have a picture of World War II, okay? So during World War II, the Nazis began rounding up millions of Jews and sending them to specially built camps where they were killed or treated as slaves. A special person. In 1944, the Swedish government began looking for someone special to send to Hungary to save as many Jews as they could from the Nazis. Koloman Lauer suggested Raoul for the job, as he was young, brave, and eager to help, and he spoke many languages. So I want you to think, what were the many reasons why Raoul was chosen for this job? Do you think he was a good choice for this job? Okay, our text box right here. Wow, Raoul could speak Swedish, Russian, English, German, and French. Running out of time. Every day, Hungarian Jews were being rounded up, packed onto trains, and taken to death camps where they were gassed, shot, or worked to death. When Raoul arrived in Hungary, more than 40,000 Hungarian Jews had already been deported to the death camp at Auschwitz. Raoul had to act quickly to save more people from this fate. Okay, and here's a picture of one of those German death camps, the gates into the death camp at Auschwitz. Turning the page. Okay, great ideas. Raoul had special passes made that he gave to the Jews, saying they were under the protection of the Swedish government and must not be deported. Amazingly, he managed to convince the German and the Hungarian authorities that these passes were official legal documents, though this was not strictly true. Here's a picture of one of those passes. This is one of the yellow protective passes that Raoul helped to design. A place of safety. As well as organizing protective passes, Raoul set up safe houses where people with his special passes could live. He organized schools, a hospital, and kitchens to look after these people, and before long, tens of thousands of Jews were crammed into these buildings. Daring rescues. Try as he might, Raoul couldn't save everyone. Starting in October 1944, the Nazis increased their campaign against the Jews. Some Jews were arrested or shot, even if they had one of Raoul's special passes. Despite the danger of being killed by Nazi guards, Raoul stopped several trains taking Jews to death camps. Climbing onto the roof, he ordered everyone who had one of his passes out of the trains and took them back to safety. Here's a quote from him. I could never return to Stockholm, knowing that I had failed to do everything within human power to save as many Jews as possible. A daring bluff. In January of 1945, news reached Raoul that everyone held in Budapest's largest Jewish ghetto was to be killed. Raoul sent a message to the commander of the German army in Hungary. He said he would personally see that the commander was hanged as a war criminal if he went ahead with the killing. Miraculously, his threat worked and the people were saved. Right here we see a picture. 70,000 Hungarian Jews were forced to live behind the locked gates of the Budapest ghetto during the war. So when it's talking about the Jewish ghetto, this was a specific area of the city of Budapest where Jewish people had to stay and weren't allowed to leave. All right, increasing danger. Despite his successes, Raoul began to fear that his life was in danger, and he started sleeping at a different house each night to avoid capture. Here we see a picture of a memorial in London that's one of the many in the world that honor the bravery and sacrifice of Raoul. Unknown fate. On January 17, 1945, just 4 months before the war ended, Raoul was arrested by advancing Russian soldiers. He was never seen again. For years, his family tried to figure out what had become of him. Then, in 1957, the Russian government finally told them that Raoul had died in prison in 1947. No one can be sure if this is true. Okay? I want you to think at this point how Raoul kept going in the face of the adversity that he faced to go on and to save as many lives as possible. Okay? Never forgotten. Thousands of people and their families are alive today because of the daring and the sacrifice of Raoul. Since 1990, the Wallenberg Medal has been awarded each year in Raoul's memory. It is given to humanitarians who, like Raoul, have shown great bravery and determination in helping others. Right here is a picture of one of the most well-known winners of the Wallenberg Medal is Desmond Tutu. He won it in 2008 for his lifelong work against racism and poverty in South Africa. All right, so here's another little kind of follow-up page about Mr. Wallenberg. So Raoul made such a difference that he had numerous memorials dedicated to him. These include sculptures in Stockholm, Sweden, and New York City. Okay, we're going to watch a video that highlights his lasting impact here in a second. Raoul also had an award named after him. In order to get this award, individuals must work to promote peace. Notable people to receive this award were Elie Wiesel, he was an author who wrote about the Holocaust, Desmond Tutu, a humanitarian from South Africa, Aung San Suu Kyi, another humanitarian from Burma, and then organizers of the March for Our Lives, which were students here in America that stood up against gun violence. So here's a video about Mr. Wallenberg. All right, and here we go.
There is a saying in the Talmud, when you save a life, you save the whole world. If you think about it, with Raoul Wallenberg saving my life and also a good number of people, I mentioned that to you, I'm married, I have children and grandchildren. This is the generation that wasn't meant to be.
Raoul Wallenberg was born on August 4th, 1912, into one of the most well-known families in Sweden, populated by notable bankers, diplomats, and politicians. In the mid-1930s, he worked at a Dutch bank in Palestine, where he first met Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi persecution in Germany. He was moved by their unfortunate plight.
This was 1936, where he got some exposure there to Jewish refugees already fleeing what was to be the Holocaust.
In the spring of 1944, Nazi Germany began its execution of the 800,000 Hungarian Jews still living in the country. Wallenberg, sensing their desperation, lobbied to attain a Swedish diplomatic post in Budapest, which he could use as a platform to assist Hungarian Jews. From this post, he granted Schutzpasses to approximately 20,000 Jews, giving them diplomatic immunity.
Schutzpasses were passes that declared you a Swede officially, and they allowed you to move freely within Hungary because you were Swedish.
With that paper, we managed to go into one of the safe houses.
Wallenberg created safe houses, protected by neutral parties, and established centers to provide needy people with food and medical care. In this way, over 30,000 more were saved.
It was an amazing thing because he put Swedish flags up on buildings left and right. He didn't have room in the Swedish embassy anymore for the thousands of people he was saving.
And finally, with the end of the war near and the Nazis threatening to murder Budapest's remaining 70,000 Jews, Wallenberg sent a warning to the Nazi leadership.
If they would go and seek to blow up the Budapest ghetto, he, Wallenberg, would see that they stood trial and would be executed for their crimes. And so the Nazi generals desisted, and some 60,000 Hungarian Jews were saved.
All in all, Raoul Wallenberg is credited with saving more than 100,000 Jews during the Holocaust, more than any other single individual during the Shoah.
He's just a great man who had nothing to gain personally from what he was doing. So risking your life every day is beyond heroism.
We looked at him and we heard about him as the Angel of Budapest.
He disappeared into the Soviet Gulag after the war, and despite international efforts, the ultimate fate of one of history's most courageous heroes remains unknown to this day. His name lives on, and more importantly, his memory lives on, in the hearts and minds of the many Hungarian Jews he rescued, and in their descendants around the world, who now number in the hundreds of thousands.
I think Wallenberg's legacy in human terms is really somebody who showed that just one person with the compassion to care and the courage to act could not only confront evil, but resist evil, and thereby transform history.
All right, so fifth graders, that is just a little bit of background again on Mr. Wallenberg. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.